Are you somewhere in the mid-game, love PvM and would like to make some GP? Well, I got you covered. I tested some popular methods and some methods that I did myself when I was in the mid-game, measured the kills and profit per hour, and now I have some pretty realistic estimations for how much money you can expect to make using each of these methods. So I put the best of the methods in a top 5 list for you, starting with the number 5, Firewatch Sentinels. The requirements for these are medium. You need to finish the Sins of the Father quest, have medium level melee stats about 70 plus recommended, and 43 prayer. Optional but recommended is also having 70 prayer for piety. So for this method, you want to get a decent prayer and strength plus crush bonuses. The best in slot top and bottom for the low effort method is going to be the proselyte armor, and you can only use the untradeable blisterwood flail as the weapon, which means that this can be done with very inexpensive gear, so it makes for an especially appealing method if you are on low money. I tested the sentinels out with a quick 10-minute run, and I managed to kill 16 with very low effort. Do bear in mind that I have almost max combat stats with piety, and I was using medium to high level gear, so depending on your levels and gear, you can expect anywhere from 50 to 100 plus kills per hour. According to the wiki, the average Firewatch Sentinel kill is worth about 7,500 GP. This is almost pure profit, since you barely use any supplies here other than about 2 super combat potions per hour. With this info, we can calculate that if you kill 50 to 100 Firewatch Sentinels per hour, it will result in a profit of anywhere between 350 to 750k per hour. It should also be noted that about half of the profit comes from a rare drop called the Blood Shard, which currently costs about 5.7 million GP. This is a positive thing for some and negative to many others. I myself tend to like it when the profit of a PvM encounter is mostly from rare drops. I feel like the dopamine rush from getting a rare drop outweighs the convenience of consistent moneymaker methods. But since this is not that high of a profit per hour, it doesn't deserve any higher than the number 5 spot. But because they are very low effort and relatively low requirements, they definitely deserve being mentioned on the list. But if you're ready to put in some more effort and risk, consider the top 4 entry, Lava Dragons. The minimum requirements for Lava Dragons are just Fire Strike and Teleportation, but I definitely recommend having 75 magic for the Trident of the Seas, a looting bag, and also 43 prayer against PKers. Lava Dragons are weak to magic, which makes it the best way for most people to kill it. Crossbow may be even better, but since it costs over 30 million, I won't include it in a mid-level guide. For the gear, most importantly, you should keep in mind that Lava Dragons are deep in the wilderness, so you shouldn't take anything you're not willing to lose outside of the 3 items kept when unskulled. And I do remind you that above level 20 wilderness, you also lose your untradables. Ideally, you want to have a Trident of the Swamp, but if that's out of your budget, a Trident of the Seas is second best. If you don't have 75 magic, you should go for the Ivan Staff. For the armor, just get any cheap items with magic bonus, such as Xerish robes. The Occult Necklace also helps a lot, so you should invest in that, as it will be one of the 3 items you don't lose on death anyways. You might want to also consider taking Black D'hide armor with you, just in case you run into PKers, as it helps you not get frozen by them that easily and escape more likely. A looting bag also helps to save a lot on banking time. I tested out this method with the Trident of the Seas and cheap gear and got about 58 kills per hour, including banking. Do note that I am 99 magic. With this, I estimate that depending on your magic level and staff that you use, you will be getting anywhere between 35 to even over 70 kills per hour. According to the wiki, the average Lava Dragon kill is worth 16.7k GP, which makes the hourly profit when accounting for supplies anywhere between 550k to 1.1 million per hour. That's of course the case if you manage to not die. It's also worth mentioning that this profit is mostly consistent and does not depend on getting any rare drops. I also have a small tip for this method. I prefer killing the dragons south of the isle, as in my experience there are way less PKers there than at the main entry. This is especially recommended if you have 74 agility and Wilderness Heart Diaries to use the shortcut there, but if you don't, just use Telekinetic Grab to get your loot from over the river. Although Lava Dragons are in the wilderness and you are at a risk of getting PK'd, which would cut into your profits, they still deserve being mentioned on the list due to them having basically no requirements. You could literally even kill them with Fire Strike, right? But if wilderness is not for you, maybe try out the list entry number 3. Wyverns. The requirements for killing wyverns are a little higher than the other methods here, but they are well worth it. You need 72 Slayer to attack them, and other essential things include having unlocked fairy rings, having an elemental shield or dragonfire shield, and also being level 70 plus in whichever combat method you're killing them with. So wyverns have been a popular moneymaker ever since the drop table got boosted way back in 2014. They're very consistent for GP, they're pretty chill to kill, and can be killed with any of the 3 combat styles, although melee and ranged are the more popular ones. For mid levels, my recommended way to kill wyverns would be with melee. I'm not a big fan of safe spotting them with with range unless you have the Dragon Hunter crossbow, which costs 61 million, so it's likely you're not going to have it in the mid game. For gear, you want to get a high strength bonus, some tankiness, and the best slash or crush weapon you can afford, with the Abyssal Whip being an easy choice. Of course, if you can afford the Dragon Hunter lance at 38 million GP, get that, as it's the best in slot overall here. It is important to note that you also need an elemental shield or mind shield once again, and if you can afford it, a Dragonfire shield is the best choice for this shield slot. So I tested out this method with mid to high level gear and low effort. I managed to get 22 kills in one trip that lasted for 20 minutes with banking. This means that in an hour, I would have killed about 66 wyverns. So depending on your gear and stats, you can expect anywhere from 50 to 90 kills per hour. Having a Dragon Hunter lance can boost these numbers drastically, as a max player with lance can get way north of 100 plus kills per hour. So let's assume you use super combats, you use prayer potions to sustain piety, and eat sharks for food. You're going to spend about 230k on supplies per hour. According to the wiki, the average wyvern drop is worth about 15k, which makes the pure profit of this method anywhere from 520k to 1.1 million per hour, and even higher with the lance, once again. So due to this, wyverns are great money, but unfortunately the 72 Slayer requirement is quite high for most mid-level players. So if Slayer is not your cup of tea, maybe you want to consider the top 2 entry, Barrows. The only requirement for Barrows is finishing the Priest Imperial quest. The other essential things are 50 magic, 43 prayer, 50 melee stats, and also 50 ranged. But it's highly recommended to have at least 75 magic, 75 ranged, and 70 melee for the Abyssal Whip. Barrows is the only entry in this list that's considered to be a boss, and it is also one of the main reasons I added it here. For mid-levels, Barrows is often the first boss encounter you really get to do efficiently, which helps you get familiar with a few different PvM mechanics and also make decent money with quite low requirements. At Barrows, you're going to use all 3 combat styles, and it's going to be a lot easier once you can access the Trident of the Seas, Toxic Blowpipe, and Abyssal Whip, but you can do it with lower gear too. You mostly use magic to kill the brothers, but since most of them have 0 magic defense, you don't need to prioritize magic bonus, as you will be very accurate anyways. So your priority to be effective here is high magic damage instead of accuracy, and secondarily not wasting many supplies, so the tanky gear is for that. For armor, a good mid-level example would be Barrow's tank top and legs, such as a Thorax plate body and a Verex plate skirt. For other gear, just get any magic boosting items you can, such as Occult Necklace, Imbued God Cape, and the Tormented Bracelet. Other than that, just get God or Black D'hide armor for switching when ranging, and other than that, just use items with strength bonus. I tested out Barrows with mid to high level gear and managed to get about 14 chests per hour. So depending on your gear and levels, you can get anywhere from 9 to 20 chests per hour. According to the wiki, the average Barrows chest loot is worth about 75k, or 88k if you have completed the Mauritania Heart Diary. So if you take into account that you use Barrow's teleport tabs and use a Trident of the Seas, you will spend somewhere about 250k per hour on supplies. So with some quick math, we can say that the final profit is going to be somewhere between 500k and 1.2 million per hour. So although the money is similar to wyverns, thanks to Barrows being a little more interesting and also teaching you PvM mechanics, they deserve the top 2 spot over them. But top 1 blows all the other methods out of the water from the money per hour perspective, but it's also a lot riskier. As you might have guessed by this, the top 1 entry is Revenants. The requirements for Revenants are just any mid to high tier weapon and the Bracelet of Ethereum, but I highly recommend having a Toxic Blowpipe, a Salve Amulet EI, a Din's Bulwark, and a Looting Bag. Revenants are infamous for being a PKing hotspot, so much so that after about an hour or so of killing Revenants, you have seen enough PKers to feel comfortable around them already. But it's for a good reason that the people are still attracted to Revenants, as their drop table is amazing for how easy they are to kill. Gearing up for these is pretty simple, just focus on cheap items with a range bonus. It's very important that you don't take more than 3 to 4 items you are not willing to lose, because at some point you will be killed. I recommend using a Toxic Blowpipe with Amethyst darts for the main weapon. A Bracelet of Ethereum is going to be essential for taking 75% less damage from Revenants, but other than that, Black D'hide top and body, Snakeskin bandana and boots, and Davos accumulator. The ring slot is unimportant, but for a necklace you ideally want a Salve Amulet EI for a massive damage boost. If not, the Glory will do. You should also note that all the action will be happening past level 20 Wilderness, so if you die to a PKer before managing to escape to under level 20, you will lose your unprotected untradeable items. Another thing I want to touch on is Din's Bulwark. It's a 2-handed shield specifically made for tanking, and it makes escaping PKers a lot easier. So much so that in my experience, most PKers don't even bother attacking you once you equip a Bulwark. The downside of it is it costs about 13 million and requires 75 attack and defense to wear, but if you can manage that, it's strongly recommended. So for mid levels, your best bet is going to be killing Revenant orcs that are near the southernmost entrance of the cave, as they offer offer a good balance between drops and toughness. They are also in about level 25 wilderness, so you can teleport straight out of there with Dragonstone jewelry or a royal seed pod. I tested it out with the previously mentioned gear, and I managed to get about 120 orcs per hour, and I didn't get PK'd a single time thanks to the Din's bulwark. So depending on your gear, levels, and overall PK activity in the cave, you can expect anywhere between 75 to 150 orc kills per hour. Time for calculations. According to the wiki, the average orc kill while being unskulled is worth about 28k. Let's take into account that you're going to spend about 800k on blowpipe upkeep, the bracelet upkeep, and other supplies. This means that the final profit without deaths is going to be anywhere from 1.3 million to 3.4 million GP per hour. So I definitely recommend using this method, because not only you will be getting a lot of profit, you will also get familiar with the wilderness very quickly, and it will make easier in the future for you to do other wildy content, such as wilderness bosses. It's also, in my opinion, more exciting than something like wyverns due to the risk factor. So if you thought that this video was exciting, consider watching the top 5 video on the screen. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.